5 tips for the perfect D&D encounters. Welcome players and game masters. My name is Tabletop Tribunal, and in this video we're going to be talking about one of the most important skills you can develop as a dungeon master, designing amazing encounters for your games. Now, if you're newer to DMing, an encounter is basically any scene in your game where the players are actively engaged, whether that's a tense negotiation with the town mayor, a dangerous trap-filled dungeon delve, or a climactic battle against a fearsome dragon. As the DM, it's your job to make these encounters as fun and memorable as possible. So in this video, I'm going to share my top 5 tips for crafting incredible encounters with a bunch of specific examples that you can steal for your own game. Whether you're a new DM looking for some encounter design fundamentals or a veteran looking for fresh ideas, you'll come away with some actionable tips to level up your encounter game. Let's get into it. Tip 1. Start off strong. My first tip for designing a great encounter is to start with a bang. What I mean by this is to begin your encounter with something attention-grabbing right off the bat to really hook your players in and get them immediately invested. For example, let's say you're designing a classic combat encounter with the party facing off against a band of orc marauders. Sure, you could start with something like, okay, you guys enter the room and see 5 orcs standing guard. Roll initiative, I guess. But that's not super engaging, is it? Instead, paint a more dynamic picture, like, you all bust open the door to the war chief's chamber, but right as you do, this huge orc in spiked black armor roars out a battle cry and hurls a spear that slams into the wall just inches from your head. Everyone, roll initiative. See how that really throws the players right into the action? You immediately have their attention. Now, obviously, this particular example is for a combat encounter, but you can apply this to any type of scene. Let's say the party is meeting with the guildmaster of the Thieves Guild to get a quest. Instead of, alright, you meet the guildmaster in her office. She tells you she needs you to steal a thing. Try something with a little more flavor, like, so you're escorted through the secret thieves' den into the guildmaster's chamber. As you enter, you see the notorious thief queen Ezra Shadowcloak reclining on a bearskin rug, casually tossing daggers at a target on the wall. She sits up, gives you all a sly smile and says, well, if it isn't the heroes of the hour, I've got a little job for you. Interested? A strong start like this sets the tone for the whole encounter and makes your players excited to see what happens next. It's the difference between your players eagerly asking the NPC about quest details and them playing on their phones and half-heartedly going along with the quest. Tip 2. Utilize dynamic environments. Another key to making encounters engaging is using dynamic interactive environments. And this isn't just important for combat encounters, but exploration and role-playing scenes too. For combat, you want to think about ways to make the battlefield dynamic and force the players to interact with and navigate the environment in interesting ways. Some examples of dynamic elements you can add to a combat are elevation changes like cliffs, multi-leveled rooms, ramparts, or treetops. These add areas that ranged attackers or flying creatures can take advantage of and add verticality to the battlefield. Destructible or movable objects like pillars, statues, crates, and furniture. For example, maybe taking out a pillar causes part of the ceiling to collapse. Hazardous terrain like pools of acid, chasms, precarious rope bridges, slippery ice, or flammable oil slicks. Interactive magic like arcane runes on the floor that create an area of silence, or crystals that shoot lightning every few rounds. The idea is to create an environment where positioning and movement are important tactical considerations beyond just rushing up to the nearest enemy and attacking. For exploration and roleplay scenes, you still want to think of the environment as more than just window dressing. That creepy abandoned manor isn't just generic spooky house number 27. Give it some genuine and unique visuals and thought. Describe evocative sensory details, the groans of straining timbers, cobwebs thick as curtains, the sickly sweet smell of rot and decay, a strange green glow seeping up through cracks in the floor. Maybe examining the worm-eaten portrait on the wall reveals a crucial clue about the haunting. The players should feel like they are exploring a living environment full of atmosphere and hints that blend into the scene. Tip 3. Create memorable NPCs. Creating memorable NPC enemies for your combat encounters is a great way to make them stand out, and this can be as simple as adding a few memorable, defining characteristics. Even for a fairly standard monster type, adding a unique quirk or some notable equipment or abilities goes a long way. For example, you enter the ruined chapel and see 5 skeletons armed with rusty short swords shuffling towards your party is generic and forgettable, but what if it's 6 skeletons draped in tattered black robes glide out of the shadows, ceremonial silver blades in their bony hands. The lead skeleton's skull is crowned with a circlet of dark iron, and its eyes blaze with unearthly red light as it points its sword at you and shrieks a battle cry in some long-forgotten tongue. Unique details make enemies stand out in your players' minds. Another easy way to do this is to have some enemies use unusual or unexpected tactics. The goblin shaman that slings spells from the back of a giant wolf, or the ogre that grapples and shoves PCs off the cliff instead of just hacking with its club like every other ogre. For important named NPCs, go beyond just personality too. Think about mannerisms, speech patterns, catchphrases, etc. Maybe the eccentric alchemist is always nervously fidgeting and sticking their bedraggled hair back into a bun, or the gruff mercenary captain ends every briefing with, "Alright, you mangy dogs, get out there and get it done." Adding this level of care and thought to the NPCs your players encounter may feel like a lot of effort and time spent on something fairly small, but this is how you get those rewarding moments dozens of sessions later when your party is asking you about what happened to their favorite NPC or telling stories about combat encounters they loved. Tip 4. Clear stakes and objectives. Something that can make an encounter feel flat or unsatisfying is if the objectives or stakes are unclear. If the players don't understand their goal in the scene or why it matters, their engagement will usually be pretty low. So try to have a clearly defined, specific goal for your important encounters beyond just kill the monsters, get the treasure. The best objectives usually have a sense of urgency and meaningful consequences for failure. For example, you must fight your way to the ritual circle and disrupt the summoning before the cult leader completes it and unleashes their demon overlord on the world. Is much more compelling than just, there's a group of cultists, they're probably evil, fight them I guess. For a roleplay example, if the party is trying to gather information from a contact in a seedy tavern, consider the contact's motivations. What are they risking by talking to the party? Maybe they're in danger if they're seen with the PCs. Maybe they want something in exchange for the info. This creates more tension and engagement than an NPC who just info dumps for no real reason other than to move the plot along. In general, the more specific and consequential the party's goal in the encounter, the more invested they will be in the outcome. The stakes don't always have to be world-shatteringly huge, but they should feel important and relevant to the party's current goals and priorities. Tip 5. Be ready for the unexpected. My final tip is to be ready for your perfect encounter to go in a totally different direction than you planned. No plot survives contact with the players, as the saying goes. For example, you spent hours meticulously designing this awesome combat arena with ballistas and a trapped floor and 3 phases where the boss gains new abilities. But then the ranger says, "I cast Speak with Animals to befriend the boss's trained chimera and convince it to turn on its master." Or you planned this super dramatic reveal about the big bad's true identity with a big monologue you wrote, and after like 2 sentences the rogue just goes, "Yeah, I attack. I don't care about his stupid evil speech." As the DM, it's important to be flexible, adaptable, and open to player curveballs. Avoid designing encounters that will completely fall apart if the party does one specific unexpected thing. And if your players do manage to bypass a chunk of your carefully prepped material with a clever idea, don't be afraid to just roll with it. You can always reskin and repurpose your unused set pieces or ideas for a later encounter. If you try to force your planned story beats even when they don't make sense anymore, or worse, you punish players for getting creative by having their ideas all arbitrarily fail, that's a surefire way to breed frustration and resentment at your table. Of course, this doesn't mean you have to let the players steamroll every encounter with some goofy exploit. If they come up with a clever idea that bypasses a challenge in a way that's actually logical within your world and your game's rules, then awesome, let them have that win. But if they're trying something you feel is unreasonable or game-breaking, it's okay to say no. Just try to do it in a way that respects their intent and agency. For example, "I like where your head's at, but this magic door is ancient dwarven stone. I don't think even your barbarian's greatsword can slash right through it. What else do you want to try?" Instead of just saying, "Dude, no, there's no way you can just slash through a magic door. Stop trying to cheese everything and take it more seriously." So to recap, my top 5 tips for designing amazing D&D encounters are: 1. Start with an engaging hook right off the bat. 2. Use dynamic interactive environments. 3. Create memorable NPCs with defining characteristics. 4. Establish clear objectives and stakes. And 5. Be ready to adapt when players do the unexpected. If you implement these tips in your encounter design process, I guarantee you'll see a huge boost in player engagement at your table. Now, of course, every group is different, so feel free to adjust and experiment to find what works best for you and your players. I hope you found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments what other topics you'd like to see covered in future videos. Happy adventuring and subscribe so we see you next time.